Hello, I'm Cary Bozeman, and I'm the CEO of the Port of Bremerton, and I'm here with the CEO report with my good friend Shar. And one of the objectives of today is, Shar, is for us to talk about some of those questions I get asked most when we go around now on our workshops and we talk to different groups. And I've kind of put together a bunch of information that I've gathered from people who ask me questions. Like, I speak to a lot of Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs, and I tend to get a lot of the same questions because a lot of people just don't understand a lot about the ports in general. You know, there's 72 ports in the state of Washington, and everybody knows the Port of Seattle and the Port of Tacoma, but very few people understand what the other ports do. And so we've been trying to educate people as to how we're spending their good tax dollars and what the purpose of a port is, because ports are what's called special purpose government, and they're not unlike a fire district or a PUD or a water utility or something. We are given authority by the state legislature to do specific things. And in our case, in ports cases, they were created to conduct economic development activities in our district. And so I want to go over this with you. I've given you the list, and maybe you can kind of ask, start out by asking me questions that you as a citizen, you're going to play the role of the citizen today. Shar, are you in our port district, by the way?
No, sir, I'm in the Port of Keyport.
Okay, but you pay taxes to the Port of Keyport.
Yes, I do.
Someday I'll quiz you on the Port of Keyport. We'll see how much you know.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. So let's, why don't you throw the question out, and I'll try to give you my best answer, because these are things that the citizens that I've been talking to in the community usually ask.
Good. Well, let's start out with, I think it's an obvious one. Let's talk about the boundaries of the Port of Bremerton and who it serves and where, where are the boundaries?
Well, the Port of Bremerton is a big port in terms of acreage. We're bigger than most ports. We have 1,700 acres in our port district because we go all the way almost to Belfair and out by the airport. So we've got like 800, 1,000 acres out there almost. And then we kind of go south. We take in Port Orchard, and we take in below Olhala, kind of in that area, down to Southworth. And then we go all the way up north to not Belfair, but Seebeck. We go all the way up north there. And then we take in most of Bremerton and most of Port Orchard. So in terms of our boundaries, we have the two biggest cities in our district are Bremerton, obviously the biggest city, and Port Orchard, the next biggest city. So anyone that lives in those, in our district, pays taxes to the Port of Bremerton. Now, having said that, there are like 9 other port districts in our county. So Kitsap County has more port districts than anybody in the state. Brownsville has a port district, Paulsbo has a port district, I can't even name them all. Silverdale has a port district. Keyport has a.
Is Tracyton still functioning?
They are. They have a port district. So, but Bremerton basically, city of Bremerton, city of Paulsbo, up to Seebeck, south to Southworth, and west to almost to Belfair. Is where, and I'm not sure the total population. I think it's probably close to 70,000 people. Live in our district, live in the Port of Bremerton's district. So
let's, what would be, so we know the boundaries, so what's the mission of a port? What is your mission?
Create jobs. Next question.
That's pretty easy.
Well, it is.
Economic development, I know you said that.
Well, economic development to me is creating jobs. There's no quality of life for anybody today, anytime, unless you have a job. Right? You have a good job.
Yes.
I have a good job. We get our health care paid for by our companies and so forth and so on, and that's what everybody aspires to. So we're one of those agencies that's out there with the special purpose of creating jobs, and we do that in a number of ways, which we'll talk to today. But one way we do it is we spend a lot of money in capital investment. And that creates jobs because we have people working on our capital projects all the time. Like this year, one of our big ones was repaving the airport. So we spent $6 million repaving the airport, and we had 50, 75 people out there working on that job, and they were making good wages and a good living, and they worked almost 6 months out there. So with our capital projects, we create jobs, and then we try to attract new companies to come to our district, and we lease them land and they build buildings, or we lease them space to put their airplane in a hangar, or we lease them places to hang their boat so they can come up and shop at the restaurants and all that. So the Port of Bremerton's only purpose in life is to be a creator of jobs. And that's how we measure our success. And we do it, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but we do it by running some businesses.
Right.
And we have 3 businesses we run, and they're all about creating job opportunities.
So let's talk about those 3 major focuses of the port, the major business areas. What
Yep.
are those? Why are airports associated with ports? Is it because the word port is involved, or the Port of Seattle runs our SeaTac
Well,
airport?
because that's one of 3 authorities that are given to ports across the state to create jobs. They can create them by building an airport, they can create them by putting an industrial park in, or they can create them by building, having marine activities. Now, Seattle is pretty obvious. They have some pretty significant marine activities, right? They've got
Right.
those big tankers and
Right.
shippers coming in and out. Our marine activity isn't about shipping, it's about pleasure boating
Recreation.
and recreation, but that recreation brings people to the community, and then they go shopping and they buy things, and boaters spend a lot of money. So the idea is that they would support your retail. I mean, if you've got a big marina like we do in both Port Orchard and in Bremerton, those boaters in the summer, now the winter not as much, but in the summer, those boaters are creating economic activity. So I'll go over each one of our businesses. Why don't we go to that? But before we do, I want to talk about how ports are managed. You forgot to ask me that.
I forgot that. And
Yeah.
management is a very important part.
Right.
Because you report not to citizens, ultimately citizens, but you have 3 bosses.
I do.
And they are the port commissioners.
They are. Most ports are run by a commission, just like the county's run by the county commissioners, and there's 3 of them. The Port of Bremerton is identically the same. We're run by 3 commissioners. There's 3 of them, and they're all elected by district first, and then they're elected county district-wide. They're elected by their own individual district, and then they're elected by the whole port district together. So they have to run 2 elections. In the primary, they're elected from their district, and then
Then they have to run
in
at
the
large.
general,
Oh, okay.
we just had a former mayor of Bremerton lose, but she won in her district, but when it went out to the total thing, she wasn't as fortunate. So that can happen. So we have 3 commissioners elected, and they're elected for 6-year terms.
That's a
and
long time.
That's a long time. They don't make much money at it. They meet twice a month in public meetings, and their job is basically to approve the budget every year and approve policies about how we'll operate, under what policies we'll use, and so forth. Just not unlike a city council, or not unlike, mostly like a city council. We don't have land use authority, and they just have authority over the business operations of the port. And so yeah, we run by 3, and then they hire someone to run the day-to-day operations. And most ports call that person an executive director. Some call them executive director, or they call them the CEO. And in the case of the Port of Bremerton, the person running the day-to-day is the CEO of the company. So I get hired or retained by the commissioners, and then I supervise the day-to-day operation of the port, and that's the way we're governed. We're a big port in terms of our acreage, but in terms of our number of employees, we're not very big. We're only about 35 employees. And we cover a lot of ground. I want to say to the public, I've only been at the port about 6 months, but I'll tell you, our people are pretty efficient. We got a very small staff relative to running 2 big marinas, running an airport, and running a 600-acre with 30 companies there, and taking care of all that land in our industrial park. We only have 35 people. So we have a small staff, a small management team, hardworking people out there doing a lot of work.
You have folks working at the port that have worked there for a long time.
We have a kind of family atmosphere at the port. About half our people work in taking care of port grounds and port equipment, and another third work in the accounting department. We only have 4 management level people in the organization, and then that's about it. And the people have been there a long time. I agree. We've got a good team of people there. And I think they like working there. They understand what our purpose is, and it's a good job. People need to be appreciative of having a job these days, but especially having a pretty good job.
Amen.
Right.
Well, so let's talk next about the business areas.
Well,
Shall
we have
cover
3 of
that?
them. We have 3 of them. The one that people probably know the least about, but it's most recognizable, is our airport. And our airport's an interesting place. We got a big old long runway sitting out there in the middle of nowhere. And people drive by it all the time if you go to
That's right.
Belfair. And what you'll see is kind of the airport terminal. It almost looks like we've got carrier jets coming in and out of
Right.
there, but we don't. And they see all those hangars, and those hangars are full of planes that individuals own, and they lease those hangars from us. So that's the business we do at the airport. And then we have the famous airport diner. And if you want the best fish and chips in the whole county, you go to the airport diner. Have our
Hey,
fish.
wait a minute, that's advertising.
We have people fly in for our
I
fish
know,
and
I
chips.
told you I witnessed
No, they
that.
fly
I have
in.
witnessed that.
Yeah. So the question about the airport is what it's going to become in the next 20 years. And will it actually be able to be the home base of some kind of airline that will fly in and out here to other destinations? And obviously that's our hope.
Is there a carrier now that goes from Bremerton to SeaTac?
No, there used to be, but it didn't do enough business.
Right.
People can get from Bremerton to SeaTac in
An hour or so.
an
little
hour,
over.
and they can take the shuttle, and it was just too much hassle. And we need a carrier that can fly from here to Portland,
Right.
from here to Spokane,
Coeur
from
d'Alene.
here to Coeur d'Alene, and so we're working on that. We've got plenty of runway, and one thing that's exciting is in about 2 weeks we're going to have a big MD-80 out there, which is a big jet that can carry 180 people, doing some testing out at our airport. So people are going to see this big jet taking off and
Cool.
coming back, and so that'll be exciting.
But folks like UPS probably use
UPS flies in and out in the morning. They fly a small aircraft, but they fly in and out in the morning. We'd like to see more of that. And what helps us, we hope, in selling our industrial site for manufacturing is that we have a rail line and we have an airport that they could use and take advantage of. Now, some of them use our rail line. All the garbage in the county comes to the Port of Bremerton. It comes to our industrial site because that's where Waste Management does their collection. So we have if anyone wants to drive to the dump, that's where they go. They're going to the port, right? So they're shipping their garbage out on rail to their landfill site in Oregon from our industrial park.
Wow.
And one of the things we're looking at is if their way environmentally we could treat that in a different way, but that'll be for our next another broadcast. But so the airport is we have about 200 pilots that own planes that keep them out there. Fred is our director of our airport and just does a great job. I think the airport over a period of time is going to grow and grow and grow and be a regional airport. I see Bremerton as being a regional airport base. So it won't be for 10, 15 years, but I think it definitely there will be chartered or commercial airlines flying in and out of Bremerton.
I'm amazed at the number of people in Kitsap County that own airplanes.
Yeah.
And they fly to places, let's go to Anacortes for lunch, or let's go to Long Beach, or let's go, to Eastern Washington.
There are a lot of what they call general aviation air pilots, and they can get into the business for, not a lot of money. I mean, it's not unlike buying a boat, except they buy a plane.
It's not more than a boat. Well, it depends on the kind of
Depends
boat
on
you
the
get.
size of the boat, but I think you can get into a pretty decent airplane for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, you know, and about the same as buying a boat. And then they have to find a place to house it, so
Right.
we rent them the space just like we rent boaters. And yeah, it's amazing.
There's a
You
lot.
see them out there on a nice day, and they're just out there, and they're getting their airplanes, and they taxi out on the runway and zoom. And they're probably going up to Anacortes, or they're going someplace to have
That's
lunch.
right.
And they fly around and look at everything, and you know, most of it's just
Very cool.
recreational.
That's
Some
so
of it's
cool.
business. We get the big brass flying in their big Gulfstream jets for the Navy, and that's quite a sight. And
Or
then-
CEOs.
or the CEOs come in of various companies. So we probably got 5 or 6 big jets, private jets that come in and out. We'll see
How
more.
about Mr. Gates? Has he flown in and
I
out?
haven't seen Mr. Gates's. I've seen the president of Costco come in his private jet, and I've seen the president of Target come in his private jet, or hers. I don't know if it's a his or her. And we've even got one of our companies, Safe Boats, has a jet out there that they fly all over the world.
Nice.
So I think my message is on that part of our business, we see a lot of growth opportunities
Excellent.
there. Yeah.
Excellent. So how about the industrial and the business park?
Yeah.
That's another big thing.
That's a big deal. We've got 700 acres, and there's industrial business in the United States coming back a little bit. People who manufacture things, who make things, entrepreneurs who dream up different products. I mean, we've got someone in our park right now that employs about 30 people, and he makes guitar forms, wood guitar that he ships all over the world.
Wow.
Because he's got this skilled labor force, and he's got this machinery that carves it, and it's amazing. I mean, he doesn't want any publicity because he gets all the business he wants. But yeah, and so we've got 30 companies out at in our industrial park right now, and we just got our latest one was Electric Boats. And Electric Boats is a company that does a lot of work on submarines around the world, and actually builds submarines. And so they're out here because of the shipyard. So the industrial park, what we basically do is prepare the land, put in all the infrastructure, the road system, the electronics, the all the stuff that these companies need, and hopefully they build their own buildings.
And
We own about 8 buildings on our site, and they're all full right now.
Nowadays, people want little restaurants or
Yeah.
little workout spaces or something
The
like
goal
that.
there, since I've been there, is it's obvious that we don't have enough amenities for our employees. There's 800 employees that work in our industrial park, and we don't have enough amenities. So, I'm proposing for this year we're going to prepare some ground for gardening, so they can have a pea patch if you're an employee out there. We're going to put in some walking trails. And then hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll build a soccer field out there. So the
great.
employees can play soccer and goof around. But we got a lot of land, more land than most industrial parks ever thought about having. And it's all zoned, and now we're annexed in the city of Bremerton. And so we got a lot of opportunity to create more jobs. I would like the next 3 years to double the number of jobs in our industrial park. So go from 800 to 1,600 or 2,000. And they're all good paying jobs, and all the companies in our industrial park pay benefits, and it's a lot of opportunity for us.
So let's talk about the different marinas. You have the Port Orchard Marina, you have Bremerton Marina.
Right. We've got marinas, and we've got piers, and we got some docks around. There's lots of stuff people don't even know that we have that people use all the time. We've got a couple big piers that people go on and fish on. We've got, we actually manage the boat at Evergreen Park.
The boat launch?
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we manage the boat launch, and the city manages the parking lot there. We have a boat launch up at up north. I forget what it's called. I forget the name of it now. And I think we have a boat launch in Port Orchard. So we manage 3 boat launches, and we manage a couple piers, and then we have 2 pretty major breakwaters at the marinas. We have facilities for our people that have their boats there. We have lockers and showers and all that kind of stuff. And we have pretty significant parking now that we've just bought, in downtown Bremerton, we just bought a block on Washington Street for parking, And we just built the Stramp, the new ramp, and it's going to be beautiful. What are you laughing for?
That word "stramp."
I know.
I've gotten used to it, but it still makes me laugh.
I need a better idea.
I think it's a cool name, actually, and I don't know why I'm laughing, but I think "stramp" is
Gary
perfect.
Sexton hates it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why I'm laughing.
He keeps arguing with me about it.
He doesn't like it either.
And I just haven't come up with a better name for it. But what it is, it's a walkway. It goes from Washington Street, a staircase ramp that goes down and gets you to our waterfront and to the Mentor Boardwalk and to ultimately to our marina. So we have these two world-class marinas where we have about our Port Orchard Marina is full, and we have some liveaboards that live in our marinas. We have about, I'd say in Port Orchard we have 15 or 20 liveaboards, and in Bremerton we have a few liveaboards, one of which works for the city, so we do that business, and that's great. The problem we're having right now is that our Port Orchard Marina is all leased out, but our Bremerton Marina is not. And we're disappointed in that, but we really got hit by a bad economy.
Right.
So when the economy comes back, we'll be ready to go, and we'll lease it all out, and ultimately it'll be a great asset for the city. And we'll do a big festival there later on Memorial Day. We're going to do a big festival, and then of course the other festival, Blackberries, down there, and we help out on that. So I think if you're a waterfront city, having a marina in your downtown like we do in Port Orchard and like we do in Bremerton is a real asset to the community. Ultimately, we're going to put a major development in downtown Bremerton that'll create jobs on that site. We'll put a retail center, a housing development, or something such as that on that site. And we're already trying to find investors who can help us with that, because that's our job, right? Creating jobs.
That's right.
And you create jobs when you start building things. We actually have a waiting list at the Port Orchard Marina because we have covered moorage there.
It's covered. And is it less expensive?
A little bit at Port Orchard, a little bit. But not a lot.
It's the covered that people want.
Yeah, it's the cover they pay for. And in Bremerton, as you know, we weren't anxious for them to cover the marina. Matter of fact, we just absolutely didn't want it. And I'm still glad that we don't have it, and we will never have it as long as I'm there. And I shouldn't say that. That's the commissioner's decision. I got to be careful here. But I would certainly advise against it. I think it blocks the views. It's not nearly as charming to look at. If you're sitting at Anthony's having a nice lunch, you don't want to be looking at a bunch of roofs hanging over boats. You want to see those sailboat things that go up, whatever they call them. And so, yeah, we think if we wouldn't have built those marinas, they would have never gotten built. So, and we think they're great. So,
do you know what the percentage of condo owners own boats in Bremerton?
It's not very high, but there are some. Some of the people living in the harbor side came to Bremerton. There's one couple I talked to a few weeks ago, and they're boat owners. They came from California because if you think about boating in the United States, if you're a real boater, there's not a better place than Puget Sound because you're on salt water and you can go all the way up into Canadian San Juans, but if you're in California, all you can do is go out in the ocean, and the ocean gets pretty iffy unless you've got a 80-footer, right? So Puget Sound is just the boating capital of the world. There might be some other areas, but if even Florida or Texas, you're going out into really can be awful water.
Right.
But in Puget Sound, you can boat for days, and if not weeks. And so they moved up here. They retired and moved up here for the boating, to boat on Puget Sound, and they got on the internet and they discovered that they could live within 70 feet of their boat. And so they bought a condo in the harbor side.
What a nice life. And
so that's the kind of, we're hoping to get more of those kind of people. Yeah. So we have a deal with the condominium owners, and that is that we preserve a certain number of spots for their to have access to. We don't give them to them.
Right.
But we make sure that they've got them. If they've got a customer who wants to buy a condo, we promise them they'll be available to them.
Excellent. Let's talk about budget.
Yep. Always close on the numbers. the company, and I call it a company, I told you we had 34 employees. We've got an operating budget of about $6 million. Now the operating budget for the city of Bremerton is about $45 million. So you can see we're very small relative to that. About half of our money that we pay for our operating costs comes from property tax, about $3.5 million, and the other half comes from the money we raise with our leases. So we're about 50%, although we're less than that now. We're about 40% of our operating income. We'd like to get that down to zero of operating income coming from taxes. So then we could take the tax money and build more projects that people need, like Seebeck wants us to build something, and Port Orchard wants us to build something, and so forth. And if we can cut our dependence on taxes by up our business revenues, that's our business model. And so, and we've been able, this year we made a big, in our 2010 budget, we went from 51% property tax for operating to 34%.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah. So we increased our revenue, decreased our dependency, put money in the reserves, and start building so we can do another project someplace. So
Excellent.
That's what that's about.
Well, you talked a little bit about what the powers of the port are, but let's go over those if you want to.
Well, we just got a minute, so I'll tell you that fundamentally the ports have the power to tax property at a certain percentage, 45 cents per thousand, and they all do. So we can tax property at a certain limit, 45% per thousand, and that's about the power we have, and it's limited to that. So those are the only taxing authorities we have. And that's enough, and I'm sure that's what the people think too. We don't get anything from sales tax, we don't get any kind of other special taxes, we get a little bit of slice of the property tax, and that's our authority.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Sure. Give us what, you've been doing this job for 6 months. Is it what you thought it was going to be? And
yeah, I mean, I took the job because I was looking for something new. I knew this company had been challenged financially and in other ways, and I thought, in my last job, you and I talked about this, because I'm not far away from retirement at some point in my life, but I thought this would be a good challenge. It's turned out to be everything I expected it to be. The challenges are the ones I expected. The lack of understanding by the public is exactly what I thought. For me, working with a 3-commissioner system, I'm learning every day. So, at my age, I'm still learning. And I don't do it perfect every day. And every day I learn something, and that's what's exciting about life, even at my age. So yeah, it's as long as for me, it's about public service. And as long as there's a public service ethic to this thing, I like doing it.
good for you.
Thank you for joining us, and see you next time. And if I don't see you before, happy holidays.